One of Thomas Pynchon's most persistent themes is that the US government is actively obfuscating us, actively throwing us off the trail of attaining any form of higher consciousness, any form of direction as a society. And today we are going to talk about what was left out of the movie, one battle after another, because I just came back from the movie theaters and I 100% enjoyed this movie. And literally this morning with my book club, we talked about Vineland, which this movie is based off of. But there is one thing that was missing that is one of the most important aspects of this book, but also our time. It is the question that we endlessly talk about and contemplate, which is, what is the point of the television or your phone or even rock and roll? And Thomas Pynchon today, in the quotes I'm going to present, will talk about how television, rock music, Hollywood, ruined our best opportunity as a collective to escape the control system, to create an American society that doesn't look as chaotic as what we are experiencing right now. And if you do not already know, Right Conscious is the headquarters of everything related to Thomas Pynchon here on YouTube. If you look at the playlist down below, you will find videos on Pynchon's books, his life, and his philosophy. And so if you are interested in that, please consider subscribing. And hey, enough from me. Let us now hear from Pynchon. And so the scene that we are going to be throwing ourselves into is a conversation on why the hippie movement failed. Because if you think about it, the radio was controlled. Everyone was listening to the same music. People were coming out in mass and wanting to change our society. Revolutionary groups weren't just typing online and being mad, but taking action. Assata Shakur just died the other day. But why did that fail? Why did it not just not go anywhere, but all those hippies got sucked into being yuppies and turning their back against the movement? And that really is what Vineland is about. And this quote I'm going to share is one of the most important of the entire book. And so when many of us were in our youth, we experienced something similar to what the hippies experienced. Because when you take acid or any psychedelic, what happens? You feel that quote, "You were never going to die." No wonder the state panicked. How are they supposed to control a population that knows it will never die? Because if you get deep enough into psychedelics or meditation or in nature or even like religion, you understand that this world is illusionary, that there is a world beyond this world, whether that's the afterlife or just another dimension. Continuing, when that was always their last big chip, when they thought they had the power of life and death. But acid gave us the X-ray vision to see through that one. So of course they had to take it away from us. Because right now there are men and women all across this country who are rotting in a prison cell, who maybe are being assaulted and hurt because they decided that they wanted to experiment with their own consciousness, which is our right as beings who have attained higher consciousness, to be able to experiment, not just with our thoughts, but also with our own body. And the government outlawing psychedelics was one of the biggest blows in our history, because the way it's been reintroduced now is so vanilla. And we are already too far gone to really utilize, as a collective, many of the lessons that it taught that generation. Continuing, yeah, but they can't take what happened, what we found out. And so it's interesting. There was this whole generation of people that did take action against the government, did do what you and I fantasize. They reached the heights of ecstasy and despair. But what do you do with all of that after the fact? Many of us are dealing with that. We had these profound experiences in our younger years. Now I'm married and have a kid. What do I do with all those peyote trips that I took? All the revelations and Satori awakenings I experienced in Kundalini meditation, in the daily grind and droll and in the monotony. A lot of that, as Pynchon says, is, quote, easy. They just let us forget. Give us too much to process, fill up every minute, keep us distracted. It's what the tube is for. And though it kills me to say it, it's what rock and roll is becoming. Because the main way that you control a population, the first thing that you do isn't divide and conquer it's always obfuscation. You have to confuse somebody to make them turn against their values and their morals. You have to confuse a population to get away with all the corruption that has been gotten away with by both sides over how many decades. And whatever progress gets made. And you see this. We've all seen this in revolutions or protests or whatever in our own life. Everyone acts like it's a big deal, and then they slowly return to normal after a couple years when no one is watching anymore. And the reason that you and I don't know that's happening is because we have too much to process. Our entire life is filled. We can watch the greatest sports teams and players in the history of the world, while simultaneously after that reading the best authors and doing everything from our own home to a crazy degree. And in our complacency, it's easy to fall down into that stuff. It's easy to start looking at your phone too much, and then years later, months later, you suddenly realize you spend hours a day on Instagram. And in the Paul Thomas Anderson movie, almost none of this was explored. The TV angle, the commodification angle that's present in the book with Zoid, doing a fraudulent scheme that's televised. All this stuff isn't explored anywhere close to the depth that Pynchon does in the book. And I think this is because it's really hard. How do you make a point about TV to people sitting and watching TV? You can make it kind of this cute metafictional thing, but a lot of the time it kind of feels weird when that's being done in the cinema. And I probably think that's why Paul Thomas Anderson cut it. Why do you think he cut it? This entire video is what I think is the most important theme of Vineland that is almost overlooked entirely in the film. Continuing. It's just another way to claim our attention, so that beautiful certainty we had starts to fade. And after a while, they have us convinced all over again that we really are going to die. And they've got us again. It was the way people used to talk. And that's what it's about. Making us live in fear. You obfuscate someone or a population, so then they have to exist in fear-based programming. This is what Frank Herbert over here talks about when fear is the mind killer, not just for an individual trying to attain higher consciousness, but a population in general. We are now scared of each other. The narratives that both sides and people tell just about what's happening in America with all the different groups are all just fabrications. It's a lot of the time just WWE stereotypes. The people making them, talking about the rednecks or all the crazy Marxists, are focusing on these outlier cases and not in communion and working with those actual communities and the average individual within it. So we're stoked up on fear and we're confused. And what starts to happen is that beautiful certainty, those convictions that change should happen, start to fade away. And in Vineland, this is a big theme, that in a post-revolutionary society, in a post-Woodstock society, our rebellion has become commodified. We have, now everyone's a talk. Everything can't change because we're swimming through a sea of simulacra. And even worse, everyone is so pessimistic now because of technology, so confused that we can't organize without tearing people down, saying, my logic is so strong that I can figure out everything that's wrong with you. I'm going to go talk about you on Reddit. And each day we give up more and more. And that is what I am fighting against on this channel. And if you guys want a group that is free of logic bros and is a fun place to talk about books for beginners, all the way up to experts, the Right Conscious Book Club is the most active book club in the world. We read anywhere from 6 to 10 transformative novels every single month, and we are reading through Pynchon's entire bibliography right now. At the start of November, we are going to be meeting as a group and talking about Shadow Ticket. Throughout 2026, we are going to be reading Gravity's Rainbow, Mason and Dixon, and Against the Day. And so I would love to see you guys over there. I'm starting something new. We are doing theme weeks where we are reading only Southern Gothic books or only Japanese novels or whatever. And if you also join my Substack, the link is down in the description below, you will get access to all of my live streams, literature and writing content, courses, and so much other stuff. There is literally over 150 hours of content over there, at least 100 hours. And so if you guys want to support me and connect with me, that is where to do it. And let's hop now into another quote. Without CoffeeZilla coming in and saying, that guy did this and that, or whatever, and get any form of momentum. And each day we give up more and more. And Pynchon says, whole problem with your folks' generation, Isaiah opined, Nothing personal, as you believed in your revolution, put your lives right out there for it, but you sure didn't understand much about the tube. The minute the tube got hold of you folks, that was it. That whole alternative America, El Dedo Mito, just like the Indians, sold it all to your real enemies. And even in 1970 dollars, it was way too cheap. In 2025 dollars, did we sell our souls to TikTok, to these attention-grabbing corporations and AI and whatever for a good price? What did we get in return? Our jobs taken? Our lives taken? Our kids, our wives, our husbands less healthy, less happy, less intelligent? What did we got extorted? And Thomas Pynchon knew for decades that this was coming. And this is why, people kind of poo-poo on this book, because in 1973, Thomas Pynchon wrote Gravity's Rainbow over here, which is one of the greatest novels of all time. But I want to ask you guys a question, because as the king of the Lit Bros, I wish Thomas Pynchon wrote 55 Gravity's Rainbows. But Gravity's Rainbow is one of the most unfinished novels for a reason. It's really hard. It's really meandering. And if we are going to create a literary renaissance, if we are actually going to spread knowledge and create any type of change in the physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual realm, then we're going to have books, art, leaders that are profound but accessible. And Pynchon took 17 years off. And I think in those 17 years, he moved away from a lot of that showmanship and realized that real literature isn't trying to impress the boys, trying to flex, but rather really drive these points home, really drive how this hippie movement, this iconic movement, was co-opted from the inside by members of it. Members of the hippie movement itself were the ones that ratted it out and ruined it. And that's what this book is about. And that's something that we as a society should be talking about more. Do you guys ever notice that if you go listen to whatever program on the left or the right, they're just talking about talking points? Even the people that talk about the history, they'll talk about, oh my God, then we let the Ayatollah come back from Paris and then he betrayed us and now Iran's bad. But none of them ever talk about any solutions. It will happen as if we establish some form of integrity, some form of awareness that it's us versus the elites, not left versus right or whatever. Until that happens, we are definitely screwed. And I think that is one of the main things that Thomas Pynchon throughout all of his novels is talking about, because he goes after all sides, because he knows that no solutions can happen until that level is raised. Doesn't matter who gets in office, doesn't matter what bill or whatever happens, because we will continue to elect bad leaders that reflect our level of consciousness and let corruption fester, because we ourselves are corrupted and have had our attention hijacked, have not been in community, do not have reciprocity with anything or everything. Those are the stakes. That's what this is. That's what Vineland is dealing with. That's what every single Pynchon novel is dealing with, literally. This next one will be too, on Prohibition, I'm sure, and that whole era, and the start of the FBI and all these early, before they were named the CIA and FBI and all of that. These ideas, what Pynchon is playing with, is the future of writing. William T. Vollmann, right up here, one of the greatest living authors, is releasing a 1,000,000-word novel next year on the CIA. Generations in the future are going to look back at us, how we look back at intelligence agencies taking down the Nation of Islam and the Black Panthers and putting crack into certain zip codes and all these different things. They're going to look at us and say, oh my God, they got on these apps and took the bait. How dumb were they? They just sat there and let themselves die instead of using the power of this world to awaken. And so, boom, there it is, everybody. That is my message. That's what Thomas Pynchon believes. That's what we need to strive for. Each and every one of us. Raise the baseline. Hold the standard. Don't be a rat. Don't associate with rats. Don't associate with chumps. Don't associate with low consciousness individuals that aren't willing to at least engage with you at a higher level. We need anyone and everyone we can get for not just the literary renaissance, but to save this country, this world, before the AI consolidation of power or whatever sci-fi wackiness is happening in the future. And so I implore you to keep reading, to keep writing, to figure out, to do whatever your journey is. And continue checking out Thomas Pynchon, man. I'm excited for October 7th for Shadow Ticket. I wrote Penguin or whoever to get a copy, but they don't believe in me and the literary renaissance and would rather give it to a bunch bunch of no-name book reviewers. And so I will be reading it as fast as possible. Well, not as fast as possible, but trying to get out some videos within a couple days at the latest on Shadow Ticket. So watch out for that. Watch out for more Pynchon content. If you are new to the channel, I have hundreds of videos on Cormac McCarthy, David Foster Wallace, and a ton of other authors. And so, boom, bada connect. We are here. We are live. The literary renaissance will live on forever as long as we continue to read and support real literature and real authors. Thank you guys for being here, and I will see you guys very, very soon in the next video.